Michael J. Crocodile Dundee.
Never. Safaris.
See those rocks sticking up there? Been standing up there for 600 million years. Still be there when you and I are gone.
Picture this. You're one of the biggest movie stars in the world. Everyone loves you. You have millions of dollars. You're famous everywhere you go. But deep inside, you feel completely empty and alone. This is a shocking truth about Paul Hogan. The man who made us all laugh is Crocodile Dundee. At 85 years old, he's finally telling the world about the biggest mistake of his life and the woman who broke his heart forever. What you're about to hear will change everything you thought you knew about this Hollywood love story. Behind all the smiles and red carpet photos was a marriage so troubled that Paul himself calls a nightmare. So grab some popcorn and get ready, because this story has more twists than any movie script. Let's go back to where it all began. The year was 1985, and Paul Hogan was already a big star in Australia. He had his own TV show where he played this funny, laid-back Australian guy that everyone loved. But Paul wanted more. He didn't just want to be famous in Australia. He wanted the whole world to know who he was. So Paul decided to make a movie. Not just any movie, but something that would show the world what Australia was really like. That movie was Crocodile Dundee, and Paul wasn't just going to star in it. He was going to write it too. He put everything he had into this film, hoping it would make him a worldwide superstar. But there was one problem. Paul needed someone to play the female lead, a tough American reporter who comes to Australia to write about this crazy crocodile hunter. After lots of auditions, they found the perfect person. Her name was Linda Kozlowski, and she was about to change Paul's life in ways he never expected. Linda wasn't a big star yet. She was just 27 years old and had been trying to make it in Hollywood, like thousands of other hopeful actors. She had studied at one of the best acting schools in America and had done some small plays, but she was still waiting for her big break. When she got the call to audition for Crocodile Dundee, she had no idea it would lead to both the best and worst years of her life. From the very first day they met on the movie set, something special happened between Paul and Linda. Paul was 46 and Linda was 27, but age didn't seem to matter. When they acted together as Mick Dundee and Sue Charlton, it felt so real that everyone watching could feel the electricity between them. Paul later said he knew he was in trouble the moment he saw Linda. She was smart, beautiful, and had this incredible energy that drew him in like a magnet. Linda felt the same way. She said that acting with Paul felt so natural that she sometimes forgot the cameras were rolling. His sense of humor and the way he made her feel safe created a bond that went way deeper than just work. Every day on set, their connection grew stronger. The crew members started noticing how Paul and Linda would look at each other when they thought no one was watching. They would laugh at each other's jokes, share private moments between takes, and you could just feel that something real was happening between them. But here's where the story gets complicated. Paul wasn't single. He had been married to his first wife, Nolene Edwards, for almost 30 years. They'd gotten married when Paul was just 19 years old, way before he became famous. Together, they had 5 children and had built what everyone thought was a strong, happy family. Nolene had stood by Paul through all the tough times when he was just a regular guy working at Sydney Harbor. She supported his dreams of becoming an entertainer and watched him slowly climb his way to fame in Australia. To the outside world, they looked like the perfect couple who had been through everything together. But something had been wrong in Paul's marriage for a while, even before he met Linda. In fact, Paul and Nolene had actually gotten divorced once before, back in 1981. But then they got back together and remarried a year later, thinking they could work things out. However, those old problems never really went away. When Paul started filming Crocodile Dundee and met Linda, those problems in his marriage became impossible to ignore. Paul has always said that his feelings for Linda only developed after his marriage to Nolene was already falling apart. But the timing looked really suspicious to everyone else. You see, Paul filed for divorce from Nolene for the second time in 1986, right when Crocodile Dundee became a huge hit around the world. Suddenly, Paul was everywhere, and so was Linda. People started putting two and two together and asking uncomfortable questions. Was Linda the real reason Paul's marriage ended? The Australian newspapers, who had always loved Paul and called him a national treasure, suddenly turned on him. The headlines were brutal. They called him a cheater and said he had abandoned his wife and 5 kids for a younger American actress. Linda, who had been an unknown actress just months before, suddenly found herself being called terrible names in the press. People were angry. Here was Paul Hogan, the guy everyone thought was this honest, down-to-earth Australian bloke, and it looked like he had thrown away his family for a Hollywood romance. The fact that Linda was 19 years younger than Paul made it even worse in people's eyes. But Paul and Linda didn't let the criticism stop them. They truly believed they had found real love, and they were determined to fight for it. In 1990, they got married in a small private ceremony. They hoped that once they were officially husband and wife, people would accept their relationship and the scandal would die down. For a while, it seemed like they had made the right choice. Crocodile Dundee had made Paul incredibly rich and famous all over the world. He and Linda appear to be living a fairy tale life, attending fancy parties, walking down red carpets, and looking like the perfect Hollywood couple. But behind closed doors, cracks were already starting to show. Paul and Linda were very different people, and those differences became harder to ignore as time went on. Paul, despite all his fame and money, was still a traditional guy at heart. When he wasn't working, he just wanted to stay home, relax, and enjoy a quiet family life. Linda, on the other hand, was ambitious and full of energy. She had given up her own acting career to be with Paul, but deep down, she still had dreams of her own. She didn't want to just be known as Paul Hogan's wife. She wanted to be her own person with her own achievements. This caused problems from the very beginning of their marriage. Paul thought that since he was successful and could provide everything Linda needed, she should be happy to just enjoy their life together. He didn't understand why she needed anything more than what he could give her. But Linda felt trapped. She had sacrificed her own career and dreams to be with Paul, and now it felt like she was losing herself in the process. A close friend later said that Linda felt like she was living in a beautiful prison. From the outside, it looked like she had everything, but inside, she was slowly disappearing. Things got even more complicated when their son, Chance, was born in 1998. Paul was 59 years old and absolutely loved being a father again. He poured all his love and attention into their little boy. Many people thought that having a baby would bring Paul and Linda closer together, but it actually made their problems worse. Paul wanted Linda to be a traditional stay-at-home mom who would focus all her energy on taking care of Chance and making their home perfect. But Linda, while she loved her son deeply, still felt like she was losing more and more of herself every day. She wanted to return to acting, to travel, to explore the world and have her own adventures. The arguments between Paul and Linda became more frequent. Linda felt like Paul was trying to control her life and turn her into someone she wasn't. Paul couldn't understand why Linda wasn't grateful for the comfortable life he had given her. To him, it seemed like she was rejecting everything he had worked so hard to provide. Paul was also not very good at showing his emotions. He came from a generation where men didn't talk about their feelings very much. He thought that working hard, providing for his family, and staying faithful to his wife was enough to show his love. But Linda needed more than that. She needed emotional connection, understanding, and support for her own dreams and goals. Linda later said that even though she was married and had a husband right next to her, she often felt incredibly lonely. Paul was physically there, but emotionally, he felt miles away. They would sit in the same room but barely talk to each other. The fun, easy connection they felt on the movie set was disappearing more and more each day. As the years passed, the silence between them grew longer and more painful. They still appeared together at public events, smiling for the cameras and playing the role of the happy couple. But if you look closely at photos from their later years together, you could see that something had changed. The spark in their eyes was gone. They stood next to each other, but they looked like strangers. Linda began to feel like she was suffocating in her own life. She didn't hate Paul, but she felt like she was living someone else's life instead of her own. Every day, she woke up feeling more and more disconnected from the woman she used to be. The independent, ambitious actress who had once dreamed of conquering Hollywood was nowhere to be found. By 2013, after more than 20 years of marriage, Linda couldn't take it anymore. She made one of the hardest decisions of her life and filed for divorce. The reason she gave to the court was irreconcilable differences, which is just a fancy legal way of saying that they had grown too far apart to fix their relationship. For Paul, who was 74 years old at the time, Linda's decision to leave was devastating. Even though their marriage had been struggling for years, he had never really believed she would actually go through with a divorce. Losing the woman who had been by his side for over 2 decades felt like losing a part of himself. People who knew Paul said he was truly heartbroken, even though he tried not to show it in public. Paul had never been the type of person to wear his emotions on his sleeve, but privately, he was falling apart. The house that had once been filled with Linda's laughter and energy now felt cold and empty. During the divorce proceedings, Linda asked for a fair share of their money and some financial support to help her start her new life. Paul, despite having a reputation for being careful with money, didn't fight any of her requests. Some people think he agreed to everything because he felt guilty about how their marriage had ended. Others believe he still loved her so much that he wanted to make sure she would be okay without him. The divorce was finalized in 2014, officially ending one of Hollywood's most watched relationships. But for both Paul and Linda, the end of their marriage was really just the beginning of 2 very different new chapters in their lives. After the divorce, Linda made a decision that shocked everyone. She decided to leave Hollywood completely. The place that had once promised her fame and fortune now felt like a trap where she had lost herself for more than 20 years. Linda wanted to start fresh somewhere completely new, somewhere far away from the memories of her life with Paul. She chose Morocco, a beautiful country in North Africa that was about as different from Hollywood as you could imagine. In Morocco, Linda wasn't Mrs. Paul Hogan anymore. She was just Linda, a woman free to discover who she really was after all those years of living in someone else's shadow. In Morocco, Linda found something she thought she might never have again: love. She met a local businessman named Mulai Hafid Baba, who was several years younger than her. Their relationship started slowly with simple conversations, but over time, they developed a deep connection based on understanding and respect. With Mulai, Linda started a new business in luxury real estate. She was finally able to use her intelligence and ambition in a way that made her feel alive again. Photos of Linda in Morocco show a woman who looks happier and more vibrant than she had in years. Her smile is genuine, and you can see in her eyes that she has found peace. Linda's new life in Morocco represents everything she had been missing during her marriage to Paul. She has freedom, purpose, and a partner who supports her dreams instead of trying to limit them. She's no longer playing a supporting role in someone else's story. She's finally the star of her own life. Meanwhile, back in Los Angeles, Paul's story couldn't be more different. He still lives in the same house in Venice Beach where he and Linda had spent their married years. But now it feels like a museum of memories that will never come back. Despite being worth more than $20 million and still being recognized as a movie icon, Paul struggles with a loneliness that money can't fix. Paul's health has also been declining. He's been battling muscle atrophy, which has made him look much thinner and weaker than the strong, confident man he used to be. But the physical problems are nothing compared to the emotional pain he carries every day. In a rare interview in 2022, Paul opened up about his feelings in a way he had never done before. With a voice full of sadness and regret, he said something that broke the hearts of everyone who heard it. "I once had it all, fame, fortune, and a wonderful wife. But in the end, I still feel like I lost the most important thing." This confession was like Paul finally admitting that Linda hadn't just been his wife. She had been the person who gave his life real meaning. But he only realized this after she was already gone, and by then, it was too late to do anything about it. Paul also admitted something even more heartbreaking. He said, "I still think about her every day. Sometimes I wonder if I had changed a little. Would she have stayed?" These words show that Paul understands now that he played a role in destroying their marriage, but that understanding came years too late to save their relationship. Those close to Paul say that since Linda left, he has never seriously tried to find love with anyone else. He's had a few brief relationships, but nothing that could fill the huge, empty space that Linda left behind. He lives a quiet life now, staying away from the Hollywood scene and only making public appearances occasionally. Recent photos of Paul show an aging, lonely man who seems lost in memories of better times. He often takes long walks alone on the beach near his house, the same beach where he and Linda used to stroll together when they were happy. Now, only he remains, walking in silence with nothing but his regrets for company. The most painful part of Paul's story might be that he finally understands what went wrong, but he learned these lessons too late to matter. He realizes now that Linda needed more than just financial security and a comfortable home. She needed emotional support, understanding, and the freedom to be her own person. But Paul only figured this out after she was gone. At 85 years old, Paul Hogan recently made a rare public appearance at a special screening of Crocodile Dundee. Fans were excited to see their old hero again, but those who looked closely could see that time and heartbreak have taken their toll. Paul appeared thin and frail, though he still tried to maintain the humor and charm that once made him so lovable. During an interview at the event, Paul reflected on his life and career. He said, "I never thought my little Phil would become such a big deal. I'm grateful for all the love from fans over the years." But when the conversation turned to his personal life, the pain was obvious in his voice. When asked about Linda, Paul gave an answer that revealed everything about how he really feels. He said, "I loved her deeply, but sometimes love just isn't enough. We tried, but in the end we couldn't walk the same path." Despite once calling his marriage to Linda a nightmare, Paul also admitted that those 23 years were the most beautiful time of his life. This contradiction tells us everything we need to know about Paul's feelings. Yes, the marriage was difficult and painful, especially toward the end, but it was also the period when he experienced the deepest love of his life. The tragedy is that he couldn't appreciate what he had until it was gone. Today, Paul maintains a good relationship with his son Chance, who is now in his 20s. Father and son spend time together, sharing simple moments that bring some joy to Paul's otherwise quiet life. But even these precious moments with his child can't completely fill the void that Linda's absence has left. Paul has mentioned that he would like to complete one final project before officially retiring from entertainment. He wants to do something special for his fans, a way of saying thank you for all their support over the years. But time and health are working against him, and it's unclear if he'll be able to make this dream come true. The story of Paul Hogan and Linda Kozlowski is ultimately a tragedy about missed opportunities, and the cruel way that time makes us understand things too late. It's about a man who had everything the world could offer, but couldn't hold on to the one thing that really mattered. It's about a woman who sacrificed her dreams for love, only to discover that she was slowly disappearing in the process. Their story teaches us some important lessons. Love, no matter how strong it starts out, needs constant care and attention to survive. It's not enough to simply provide for someone financially. You also have to support their emotional needs and personal growth. Most importantly, we need to appreciate the people we love while we still have them, because once they're gone, all the regrets in the world can't bring them back. Paul Hogan's admission about his nightmare marriage isn't really about blaming Linda or making excuses for what went wrong. It's about an old man finally being honest about the biggest mistake of his life, not recognizing the treasure he had until it was too late to keep it. As Paul faces his final years, he does so with the knowledge that somewhere far away in Morocco, the woman he loved more than anyone else has found the happiness and freedom that he could never give her. It's a bittersweet ending to what started as a beautiful Hollywood love story. The tragedy is that both Paul and Linda are probably happier now than they were in their final years together, but they had to break each other's hearts to find that peace. Sometimes, the kindest thing you can do for someone you love is to let them go, even if it destroys you in the process. This story reminds us that fame and fortune mean nothing if you don't have someone special to share them with, but also shows us that it's never too late to find happiness, even if it means starting completely over in a new place with a new person. If this story touched your heart the way it touched mine, please show some love by hitting that like button. Share this video with your friends and family, because everyone needs to hear this powerful reminder about what really matters in life. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel and ring that notification bell so you never miss our latest stories about the real lives behind Hollywood's biggest stars. Trust me, we have so many more incredible stories coming your way that will amaze, inspire, and sometimes break your heart just like this one did. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.